I'd like to talk about cybersecurity insurance right now. It's something that a lot of companies are getting a surprise this last year. In the last 2 or 3 years, the rules have changed. Historically, insurance companies are used to they're only paying out 20 cents on every dollar they take on insurance. About 4 or 5 years ago, right after COVID, um, insurance companies discovered that they were spending 80, 90, or some insurance companies were losing money. So that's why the rates, everybody's going, man, my rates have doubled, they've tripled, or I'm paying 10 times this year for renewal. And that's if you get a renewal. A lot of companies are not getting renewed, they're getting dropped. And that's one of the worst things that can happen to you because once you get dropped, sometimes even after you've gotten compliant and remediated what caused them to drop you, it could take a year to get insurance again. Because the new insurance companies, they ask you, one of the first questions they ask, have you ever been dropped? It's right on the application. And you have to answer it yes. If you answer yes, your chances of getting cybersecurity insurance have just dropped in half. That's not me saying that. That's what I'm being told by insurance brokers. We've worked with a lot of them trying to get our clients cybersecurity insurance. I've picked up a lot of clients because they've called and said, "Hey, I lost my cybersecurity insurance. Bank tells me I can't have, if I don't have cybersecurity insurance, that they're not going to give me my $10 million line of credit. They're going to cut it in half or drop it or call it." The time to fix this is before you get dropped, not after. You can understand why the insurance companies, they're in business to make a profit, not in business to lose money. So when they write your policy, they write, they accept risk. They're going to pay you if you have a breach. A lot of the new clients that we get, I have to say it this way. It's sometimes hard to talk to somebody about their health before they have a health problem. But once they have a health problem, they don't ask how much it costs. They say, who's the best? Well, it's the same way in our industry. Sometimes it's difficult to convince a client or a prospect why they need us until they've had a problem. And then they don't ask how much it costs, they ask how quick can you get it done? Because they're down, they're corrupted, or they've been dropped from their cybersecurity insurance. Well, cybersecurity insurance is supposed to be your backup plan in case or when you have that breach. Because you can do everything right, still have an employee make a mistake. If you've done everything right, it should be a minimal mistake. And we should be able to make it a minor mistake with a minor breach. It shouldn't be a catastrophe. But if it is and you have to file a claim, you paid money, good money for that policy, and you want to make sure it'll pay. Well, you've probably noticed on your last cybersecurity policy, it went from being 2, 3 page application, being 20 pages or more. There's a reason. The insurance companies have found out that they can't just write a policy and not make sure that you're doing the right things, that you're following best practices. It's not supposed to be a policy to protect you so you can do dumb things, so you can fly out there without, taking reasonable precautions. So here's what happens. They've adopted a framework. Almost every insurance company has looked at what the government's doing, and it's called NIST. NIST stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They've adopted part of that framework for the very minimums that you have to be doing in order to have one of their policies. For instance, 3 or 4 years ago, most people said, what's MFA or 2FA, two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication? Every single insurance policy out there today requires that you have MFA in place. And when you check that box saying you have it, you better have it on every user and every device. Because when you file that claim, 24 to 48 hours after you file that claim, that insurance company is going to send one of the forensics investigators on site. And they're going to run a tool, just like we run on a third-party scan, and they're going to find all the users and devices that don't have MFA. The insurance companies are just looking for a reason not to pay that claim. It's human nature, but they're a business. If you didn't do what you were saying you would do, why should they do what they said they would do? And they've written every one of those policies to protect them if you don't do it. You know that only 49% of most insurance claims were paid this last year. I learned those numbers standing on a stage where one of the industry giants, Rusty Goldwyn, was speaking. And one of the things I also learned, and it amazed me, insurance companies are actually, you file a claim and they find out you weren't doing what you said you were doing in the application, you weren't doing MFA, you didn't have some type of SIM, Security Information Event Management, you weren't keeping the machines updated and the antivirus software updated, they find out you weren't doing these things that you said you were doing. Not only did not pay your claim, they now sue you. And guess what? You already signed an agreement with them, a policy that said that you would do all these things, and if you didn't, you agreed to damages. You've already agreed to that in the fine print of that agreement. You have not a leg to stand on. They'll get you for insurance fraud. They'll say you got a better rate than you would have got, or you got insurance when you wouldn't have gotten it because you weren't doing what you said you were doing. And that's actually how they do it. If you are doing all the right things, you can get a lower rate. So if you commit fraud on your application and you write down, hey, I'm on all these 20 pages and you answer all these things, I'm doing all of this stuff, and you're not doing it, they're not going to pay. And if it's bad enough, they're going to come after you. There's kind of a joke in my industry that insurance companies have found a new revenue stream, suing their clients. And and you will pay, and you'll cover their legal costs too. It's kind of hard to run a business when you need them most. When you've suffered a breach, your data is encrypted, it's being sold on the internet, your production line's down, and your insurance company won't pay, and now they're suing you. And it gets worse than that. Even the government comes after you now for fines and litigation because you weren't doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's why compliance is essential. And basically, we're finding today that the cybersecurity insurance business is doing a better job of convincing businesses to be compliant than the government regulations. Quite often, the government regulations are self-attestation until you need them. When they show up, it's no fun. Let me tell you how it can get even worse. The insurance investigators or the FBI, if they show up, or the state police, depending on what state municipality you're in, if you've reported a breach and they show up and they find you were not compliant, you were negligent, not only do you have to look for those fines, they may take all of your computers and servers with them. So you better have a good backup program, a good disaster recovery program, and a good incident response program in place. Because it's very hard to work when all of your data that was sitting on those servers walked out the door to the arms of law enforcement. Because they're going to use that as evidence against you in court. That's insult. That's adding insult to injury. It's huge. It happens daily, and most businesses aren't aware of it. That's my mission here. Securafy has a mission. Let's educate our clients so they can make an educated decision. If you don't know, how can you be expected to make that kind of a decision? You need to know what's happening. You need to stay informed. That's our job, to educate you and let you make the decision.